Okay, yes, it looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing tonight? This is, by the way, not the monthly live stream. This is me doing the monthly AMA answers from the $3 patrons, which I normally do as a separate video, but real life keeps happening. I'm like, well, you know, Heather closes tonight. I got a few hours. I'm just going to do it as a live stream. So I might do an edited down version of this for people who just want to see the answers, but so far, we got Chris and Wes. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
So-so. Kind of trying to get some other stuff done IRL. That's why I haven't uploaded much content lately on my part. But some struggles, IRL struggles. They're real.
So for those of you who don't know, if you are at least a $3 supporter on Patreon or Subscribestar, you can ask me anything you want, one question a month. The links are below to ask questions for December. So let me go ahead and kick it off with the questions they asked in November, with Hugesinker starting off with a pretty good one. How's your year going so far? Can I answer that with just a groan?
Into that.
I'm pretty sure everyone except Kamala Harris is thinking that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, aside from the political and aside from the COVID stuff, it hasn't actually been a bad year for me. In fact, I may come out, financially ahead a little bit. Not as far ahead as I would be if COVID hadn't hit, but, it hasn't been quite so bad.
Some things are objectively better, though, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything really eventful this year aside from the COVID. So I think I told you guys that my nephew got COVID. Well, now my niece has it. So.
Oh, yay.
So it's gone around that end of things. So.
Does that mean your brother and sister are gonna soon have it too, or? Well,
no, because they're grown and out of the house and they're in different areas.
Oh.
So my sister lives with my mom, and we're really trying to keep my mom isolated because she's in her 80s. I mean, she's really healthy, but, she's at that high-risk age group.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing especially eventful, but just financially. I don't know how much of this is a regression to the mean or whatever, but the portfolio I've gotten has been really going gangbusters this year. In fact, I think I made over $10,000 just in this last month alone. So
and as for my year, it's going pretty bad, but like I said, I'm not going to go into details why.
Yeah. So if I can get this house paid off, that is going to help me a lot. So.
Yeah.
Well,
you probably would have paid it off sooner if the government didn't mess up the housing market in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't had the accident in 2006, that wiped out a lot of my...
Oh, yeah.
My savings is nowhere near where it should be, but it's getting back up there. So,
okay.
So
second question.
All right, second question. This is from Peair. What is your response to the argument that we should not legalize prostitution, only decriminalize, because human trafficking reports increase after legalizing? Well, first of all, what do you actually mean by human trafficking?
And what do you mean by reports?
That was the second thing I was going to go to.
Oh.
But, I mean, first of all, with human trafficking, people think about, kidnapping someone and bringing her, into the country for prostitution or whatever. But when we're specifically talking about legalization, like, geez, what was it? One of the European countries legalized prostitution. And so they said, oh, well, there's all this human trafficking in there. Well, the human trafficking was just women voluntarily going into the country, to do sex work. And we saw it was like in what state it was. I think it was like, because in Nevada, prostitution is legal. And I think it was Colorado. And she had a client that was in Colorado. And so she went to him and they arrested her because prostitution is illegal in Colorado. But they charged her with human trafficking of herself.
Wow. Also, Shane, a little correction. I don't think prostitution isn't legal in Nevada. It's just that there's a slab outside of Las Vegas, which it's technically a part of Las Vegas, but it's also technically not a part of Las Vegas. So legally, it's not in any of the counties. So therefore, it doesn't qualify for the vice laws.
I thought it was at least out in the counties surrounding Las Vegas because it's not legal in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then reports you mentioned, Chris, was the second thing. It's like, how much of it are you just hearing about? Because, I mean, I'm sure back in the 20s, if you went around people and asked them, hey, do you drink alcohol? They'd all be like, nope, of course not. Completely law-abiding here, not doing it. And now everyone talks about going and grabbing a beer, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They're more open about it now that it's legal, so. Yeah. But there is when what people think of as human trafficking, the actually forcing someone into sex work, that happens way more when it's illegal.
Oh yeah,
extremely, like, holy shit.
I mean, here's what I say. Look at drugs and alcohol. You know, when they were illegal, what was a popular black market job? Smuggling booze,
smuggling drugs, especially pot, because it was a big favorite. Literally every fuck thing else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and even if you were just setting up a moonshine still on your own, if the revenuers found out about it,
they would basically do what they did to Popcorn Sutton until he finally killed himself. Which I love Hank Williams saying the company was going to sell a weakened version of his recipe. He said, "Fuck you, I'm not supporting." And Hank Williams Jr. told him that, "Fuck you, I'm not supporting your asses," like that. But they could outright kill you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of songs like that. Like Copperhead Road is one, Rocky Top's another, where there's a verse about someone's making moonshine, and a revenuer goes up to catch him, and the revenuer is never seen again. So, of course, in the folk songs, the revenuer always loses. That's just how it is.
Which they should.
Yep. Yeah, when people were actually resisting bad laws, imagine that.
Yeah.
And SKM before that, on the previous question, asked, do you think prohibitionists got off lightly after how badly it went? Yeah, they pretty much should all have been put in prison, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, next one is Thomas Urbanski, and he asks Bob, whom I'm guessing is just not anyone specifically, it's just like a generic Bob person. Bob has a discussion on the internet that is visible to the public. Bob has a job and responsibilities, so he doesn't want to spend too much time on it. Bob notices that the other side is strawmanning him, but also understands how observers could be tricked. Is there a way for Bob to exit the discussion while leaving clear hints for future observers?
I guess he's asking. It's like, how do you get out of a discussion that's clearly just being a brick wall without it making it look like the other side saying, "Ha! I made him leave. That means I won."
Yeah, and that's a tricky one. The thing is, he needs to exit quickly, and generally the exit strategy is to make the other side show themselves for what they are, but that can take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you push them enough, they'll show their true colors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I don't know about quickly. Yeah. Other than just posting the reputations of the straw man
and Marco Polo.
He's like, yeah, Marco says ask him to put up or shut up, yeah.
Just leave the discussion and talk to a potted plant, because you're probably gonna have a better, more productive conversation talking to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just correct the straw man and say, I'm out of here. Yeah.
And try to talk to one, Mr. Frank.
Isn't that right, Mr. Daffodil? And what do you know? You're a flower.
Well, let's ask someone more intelligent. What do you think, Wall?
Yeah.
So stay in there too long and they would just resort to a gish gallop. Yeah, don't get caught in the gish gallop. Don't get caught when they shift the burden of proof thinking you have to support it. Just, don't fall into those traps.
You start out from arguing the negative, and they try to do that, they have no real answer, and they're just trying to pick you off. Marco and I argued a couple of guys on a video. They were trying to justify the minimum wage through a federal mandate and lied through their... I suckered one to catch him. Marco blew it out the water beautifully. It was a shit show. I forgot what was it like? What was it, Marco? Like 240 or 250 something fucking comments?
I caught part of that, but I didn't go through all of it, but geez, man.
So what's next? Is this a Scribe Star or Patreon?
We're going over to Patreon now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, and this is yours, okay? So,
okay.
You ask, I have a question, Shane. Why do you think the villain in a lot of movies, comics, and books is almost always an evil corporation, and the plots always involve the corporation doing something that for a private company would make zero economic or practical sense, but is plausible by a government? Do you think it's just laziness or indoctrination? Well, I made this point before. I mean, if you want to tell, like, a big story, like a big world-changing story, you know, not like a simple police procedural type thing, but, you know, like finding the big enemy, you really only have three options: government, organized crime, or a big corporation. So.
Yeah. But still, some of those evil corporation tropes are just so ridiculous. It's like, okay, listen, we caused this disaster, and it's going to cost us a lot of public publicity and millions of dollars in revenue. Therefore, I propose we spend millions of dollars hiring a private army and killing anyone that knows about it, because that totally will work.
And JC says, because the writers know nothing about economics? Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really think it's laziness if you're talking about the situation being set up, because, I mean, yeah, you do kind of want a backstory, but you don't really want to go into a whole lot of detail about it. I think it's really only laziness on the part of writers when it drives the plot, or even especially as a resolution to it. And I mean, I think you do find plenty of examples where it's the government or the military or something like that who are the bad guys. And a $5 super chat from Khalif Jones, asking the big questions. What are your thoughts on the election so far? Do you think the election was stolen from Trump, or is he a sore loser? Is Rand Paul 2024 viable? I don't know about Rand Paul, but someone had posted something to one of the Discords. It was something like whatistheevidence.com or something like that.
Oh, it's Here Is the Evidence, and
Here Is the Evidence.
It was me that posted it in the general.
Yeah. Yeah, I took a look at that. I mean, I didn't click on any of the links or something, but man, it was this whole big long list of things that are just crazy and
absolutely foobarred.
I mean, I have read some things that are pretty much undeniable, like, I don't remember if this was Michigan or Georgia or somewhere. The states are like just melding together in my mind. But in one of them, they were looking at, you know, physically how quickly a ballot machine could feed the paper through. And it was something like running continuously, even assuming there were no paper jams or anything like that. It could only do something like 30,000 votes in an hour processing them. And yet in 1 hour, it registered like 150,000 votes for Biden. So it was like physically impossible. So.
And I'm sorry, folks, but you voter glitch. I'm sorry, but unless you can deliberately prove a glitch, you press X to doubt that, because software and machines do what they're programmed to do. Even rig things if they're signaled.
Well, and even without that, I mean, I've covered on the podcast, basically DEF CON year after year has Voting Village, where they grab a bunch of these voting machines and see if people can hack them, and they're always hacked.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, oh yeah, the tape of the Georgia election, is that the one where, I mean, there's no audio. I would like to see if there's audio, but it's pretty clear that they're talking to the observers, and they're sending the observers out, and they're putting the cloth over the tables like they're closing down and everything. And then the rest of them are gone. And then like 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5, start processing ballots again after everyone's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just blatant point.
Yeah. And here's the thing, people, like, look, love him or hate him, Trump does have every right to challenge the opponent during the election. And the funny irony, you brought this up multiple times, wouldn't Biden people want this to be investigated? Because here's the thing, if you really, really hate Trump, what better way to humiliate him than prove him wrong?
Exactly.
I mean, with the situation as they've set up now, basically there's no way to get out of this without half the country thinking the election was stolen. If nothing comes of these lawsuits, then all the Trump people are going to think that Biden cheated and stole the election. If the lawsuits are successful and Trump becomes president, then all the Biden supporters are going to think that Trump stole the election. What the Biden people should really want, their best case scenario is for all of these to go forward. We check out the ballots. We look at all of this stuff. We fix the problems. And Biden still wins. That is the only way I think you're going to...
The pro-Bideners are doing the opposite of that. They're denying it. They're interfering with it. They're trying to stop it. You got rhinos in the Republican Party trying to help them interfere with every fucking step of the way. Thankfully, though, they've gotten audits and seizures of the Dominion machine through an audit. And they've also are doing secondary investigations right now. And PA is already going to SCOTUS, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was one thing about Pennsylvania that I was looking at, and my chat is getting cut off. But it was one of the judges. They were coming forward and they say, "Okay, let's have our evidence be heard." And the way you do that is with an evidentiary hearing. The judge denied them the evidentiary hearing and then dismissed the lawsuit because they didn't present any evidence. Well, how can they when you deny them the evidentiary hearing? I think tomorrow, the 8th, is the day to watch because that's the, what do they call it? It's the safe harbor date, the last date you can bring through complaints. And so this is where all of the things are going to be heard. All the judgments are going to be made. I think the Supreme Court's actually looking at a couple of things. So, tomorrow will be interesting.
It is very possible that it'll be delayed past that, though.
Well,
yeah.
And again,
the 8th isn't like this hard and fast date. A court can always say, you know what, look, there's too much. You got to push your safe harbor date out. January is where it's finally certified.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of things. By design, there's all sorts of things that can happen before then. Our founding fathers wanted this to be second guest and third guest and fourth guest. They really wanted to be sure about it.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. This is the thing, folks. There was a guy from Europe that told me that they would decide with the Democrats. I was like, no, they probably do something. I won't say on the stream because I don't want to get Shankily and Nene too, but they would probably do something to both parties right now if they were around.
Yeah.
If they could come back from the grave and do it.
Involving muskets and cannons, yeah. Okay, so Josh Havins asks, what are your top 5 movies? You did that on purpose, didn't you? Last month I say no more superlatives. What do you do? Ask me about superlatives. Alright, with the disclaimer that this is going to change every time you ask me. I guess I always got to put 2001 on top. And then my usual, I guess, I always include, I think, The Martian and WALL-E. Those are just 2 of the best movies ever made. If I'm going to move away from science fiction, because I don't want to just pet everything with science fiction, I think I got to add the Sidney Lumet 12 Angry Men, the one with Henry Fonda.
Too bad that would never happen in a modern day court because it's like, hey judge, one of the jurors knows what jury nullification is and he knows what his rights and powers as a juror are. Oh, he's unreliable. Kick him out.
Well, that was the thing. None of them expressly talked about jury nullification.
Well, still,
even though that's kind of what they did, you don't have to say, hey, we have the power of nullify in a way that would make them just like, no, we're just examining the evidence.
Well, still, with the way courts are set up these days, yeah, if you know what your rights and powers as a juror are, the judge is going to be like, oh, you're biased, you have to go, you're not reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want.
I think the only thing that a judge would have a problem with what they did was when they reenacted, the old man with the bad leg getting to the door in 15 seconds. Because from what I'm told by legal experts, that's going beyond what a jury is supposed to do. But I don't know. I mean, I would think a reality check of that kind of thing would be fine.
Yeah, they want ones that, won't ask too many questions. They just want ones that they can tug at the heartstring at.
That's a good question, Bateman. That's a good one. And that's my
Okay,
answer.
what was your 5th movie, Shane?
5th one, let's see. I think this time I'm going to go with Inherit the Wind, the one with Frederick March and Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Yeah. Ask me next month, I'll have a different list, but... the first three will probably be the same, but probably they're always going to have 2001, The Martian, and WALL-E on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's just so many good classic movies.
Yeah. Well, we better get to Pipsqueaks because he's got a big one.
Oh, yeah, that's why I did it in this order to save Pips for last, and I didn't know if he was going to make it on there because this might be a good discussion, but all right, he says, I've been thinking a lot about economic theory recently, and the paradox of thrift keeps getting stuck in my head. To me, it begs a critical question of why people save. I think it's for two reasons: to save for a future purchase or to hedge against risk. If during a crisis a lot of people start saving, doesn't that indicate that not enough people were already saving to begin with? If people have enough in the bank, what reason is there to save further? I think that the paradox of thrift is only a problem if there already isn't enough saving to insulate against any crisis or shock. Your thoughts on this? All right, so maybe we should back up a step. The paradox of thrift is one of those central tenets of the Keynesian religion. And basically what it says is that if you save money, if you put it in the bank, then that has a repressive effect on the economy. Because it's just sitting there not doing anything, you're hoarding it. What you need to do is you need to go out there and spend it and get that circular flow going. Of course, anyone familiar with J.B. Say knows the problem with that, because what really causes the economy to improve is investment. And all saving is investment of one form or another. So, but I think this is all going to come down to interest rates, because when things are going great, interest rates get low in a free market. You know, we've got all sorts of crazy things going on here with central banks, but in a free market, when things are going great, interest rates are low. That means that people might save a bit, but you know they're just going about doing their thing. And you got to look at the other side as well. The borrowers, you know, they're going to invest in longer term projects. They might, you know, build a factory that's going to take them 30 or 40 years to pay off, because they're figuring that, you know, like over this period of time, they'll be making in enough money to make the payments on it and pay it back. When things start to go a little caca, that's when the interest rates go up. And the interest rates are there because, you know, generally, like it says, during a crisis, you know, people don't want to start saving. The way you get them to save more in a crisis is for the interest rates to go up. So that encourages them, that gives them a better return, and that encourages them to save more. On the other end of things, if you're actually borrowing and to make new capital investments, that borrowing, you're not going to want to do it long term. You're not going to want to, you know, do a 12% interest rate on something that's going to take you 40 years to get back. You know, you would do it for something that that would only be for, you know, like 6 months or a year or something like that, short-term projects. And that's kind of what we saw at the start with COVID. They were doing the short-term things like stepping up production of masks and parts for ventilators and things like that. You know, that's kind of what you want to do in a crisis to kind of get everyone over the top of it. So, interest rates play a lot of that. But of course, in the real world, we've got the central banks messing everything up. People aren't saving anywhere near as much as they would because the central bank just keeps pushing rates down to the floor. And that's why people are saving more during the crisis, when if anything it should be the other way around, because now they're saying, well, I don't know when we're going to get out of this, and I don't have that much socked away, so I need to save more. And well, that's because you're monkeying around with interest rates too much. You know, you want to be doing that when things are going well, and then, you know, when you come in, you know, you jack up the interest rates to kind of encourage a little more saving, but you're also encouraging the borrowing for shorter term projects instead of long term. Oh, there's money that's sitting here in the bank as opposed to the money that's getting spent. Well, that money is getting spent because the way banks make money is that they loan it out for a higher interest rate than they're giving you. All right, so if you have a a CD or something like that, and you have it in there for 6 months, and they say, okay, we'll give you, 3%, and then at the end of 6 months, we'll figure, well, they're going to loan that out at 5%, and they're going to make a couple percent. Yeah, but Pip, we are, I think, technically trying to answer your question right now, so if you want to go ahead and pop on in, and we can continue talking about it. So basically, I think let's try to recap this question to make sure we answered it. People save for 2 reasons: to save for future purchase or to hedge against risk. It's really all about time shifting. And hey, Pip.
There he is.
This is actually something that, I've heard from charities in places like sub-Saharan Africa, these small little villages where they've basically been, the same tribe for thousands of years. And one thing is if you give them there was one time I was reading about where they were doing Christmas, and they were giving everyone their Christmas presents. If you give them something that can be easily divided out like candies or something like that, what they'll immediately do is go and spread it all around with everyone else and share it. And you think, well, okay, that's pretty sweet. But the problem is they do that with everything, and they're having a hard time explaining to them, how savings work and how capital investment works. So that, you can save up, you can open a store, and you can benefit people even more in the long run by saving it up, and it's not like they're a bunch of socialists who think it's immoral. It's just such a foreign way of thinking. They've been doing it this way for thousands of years. It's hard to get their brains going, in that new way of thinking of the time shifting, the time preference. I guess if you are a hunter-gatherer society, that's all you're doing is you're just continually working for your short-term sustainability, and you're not in a position to think about, 5 years or 30 years from now. So it's a big shift in thinking. And also that question, doesn't that indicate that not enough people were already saving to begin with? I think it goes back to what I was saying, Marco, earlier about scientism. It's there is no, correct amount of people who were saving and the correct amount of money. It's just about who wants to save. But, when you monkey around with incentives with the central bank, you end up with a lot more problem. If people have enough in the bank, what reason is there to save further was the next part. And I think, that's kind of the idea. You do want to save enough for a rainy day, but with the central bank pushing interest rates down to the floor, you don't get that. And so when you do have something big, like COVID hitting, people are found that, they don't really have enough saved up for it. Or not even a big thing like COVID, like in my case in 2006 when I was hit by a drunk driver, and that just completely, destroyed my savings that I've been working all this time to try and build back up.
Or even worse, Shane, the central bank pulls a Weimar Republican, they just print more money, so your savings are still intact, but the currency is so inflated, it's worthless. The
purchasing power.
Yeah, so that tens of thousands of dollars you've been saving up for decades for your retirement, now it's only worth $2.
Yeah.
Well, and it's they got this idea during the Depression that deflation is bad. Deflation is bad. Well, deflation is bad when the central bank is just yanking assets out of the economy, and so that all of a sudden no one has any money. But that's different from deflation that occurs because of an increase in productivity or an increase in purchasing power. But no, they keep thinking there's deflation, we got to print money and get inflation back up, or else we'll have another Great Depression, and they just don't understand why the Great Depression happened.
If you look at the general relationship between money and the amount of goods in an economy, and inflation is what happens when you have an increase in the money supply, deflation is what happens when you have a decrease in money supply relative to the goods and services that are available. If a money is deflating, would that not, absent a central bank and a government basically enforcing one single currency, does deflation in a currency not signal to the people who can make that currency, say, for example, if you have an economy that runs primarily on gold coins, if you have deflation, would that not increase the number of people prospecting for gold because they can make a higher amount of profit making more money than they can doing something else.
Exactly, yeah, they can do that. But I mean,
so
even
it's a
if
self-correcting problem.
Yeah, but I mean, even something like cryptocurrency where you can't do that, then it would still be the same effect. It would just have to be reflected in changing prices, not in actually, putting more currency into place. But yeah, with the proper gold standard, you'd have that. And you'd also have the opposite if things started going the other way. People would be, turning in their dollars for gold and then, putting the gold in their safes or whatever.
Speaking of gold standard, though, I still get tired when people say, oh, but there's a finite amount of gold, so if the economy keeps growing, the gold won't be able to keep up with it.
Which is bullshit on all grounds. Tell them in the last 6,000 years it's been done versus every attempt to do a paper money and fucking collapsed.
Well, I mean, if you just look at how much that happened between the start of this country and 1913, or even if you want to go to 1971, where we completely went off the gold standard, that wasn't happening. And I mean, our population just grew by leaps and bounds, during that whole entire time, for the better part of 2 centuries, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, for fuck's sakes, we got off the standard when to FDR, and we were on a reserve system until Bretton Woods. And that's a common misconception a lot of people still peddle this day. We were on a gold reserve before Nixon kicked us off of it.
Yeah. That was the idea of the Bretton Woods standard. The dollar would be backed up by gold, and the other currencies would be backed up by the dollar.
Well, technically it'd be a reserve, but still, if it went back on the Bretton Woods thing. And I think some economists have predicted if they try to do the Great Reset bullshit, when it does fall flat on its ass, which of course it will, because it's too big, it's too incompetent, and too big to fucking work at all. So what there's going to happen is there's going to have to be a reset of an actual resetting of sorts and winding the clock back. And Peter Schiff was one of the guys that called it, because we're not going to have much choice.
Yeah.
And I think really it's going to be a combo of certain types of crypto and the pre-Bretton Woods gold metal reserve. It's going to be like a combo of the two, I think, personally.
I just think any discussion about is this good as a currency, you really got to look at the core properties and functions of currency and money, and it's almost like a hypothetical discussion because government's legal tender laws disrupt the current market value quite a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like trying to have a conversation. It's like trying to have a conversation about is cryptocurrency good as money in Russia, except that the Russian government has banned the use of cryptocurrency as money. So it's like that's fairly big disruption.
Yeah. But I mean, Venezuela tried it, but their currency was just so crappy, people kept using it anyway, and Venezuela ended up kind of saying, yeah, okay, you can use cryptocurrency, just pay your taxes in it, so.
Isn't Zimbabwe the same thing, where their dollar is so worthless that most people just use the US dollar or the euro, and...
Do they even technically have a currency anymore, or did their currency just crash so hard it's just non-existent now?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think people are using dollars and gold and cryptocurrency.
Yep.
I think to me,
a lot of Dash users in Nigeria too, because apparently Nigeria's hyperinflating their currency. And thanks to everyone who gave a super chat. Thanks to all of the supporters, especially the ones who asked questions, everyone who participated in the chat. Above all, thank you for watching. Please look at the links here. You can go to donate.bogosity.tv. Give me anything you like. I will try and get an edited version of this up for people who just want the answer. So thank you very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.